forecast. And it's not just confined to the blue coastal states, as some call them. We've got a drought in the Midwest. I hope it ends soon. But when it comes to corn country, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, we're worried. I hope it doesn't happen, but it could, and we know it could happen soon. And then in the southeastern part of the United States, extreme storms, rains they haven't seen before. I just say that after listening to the Republican leader describe the situation with the environment, wondering if he reads the papers or talks to people back home, because extreme weather is happening all over the United States. And it isn't just in Republican areas or Democratic areas, it's virtually everywhere. And so when President Biden comes in and says, shouldn't we do something about this for the good of our children and our grandchildren? Shouldn't we be willing to sacrifice a little bit? Shouldn't we be willing to change some if it means that they're going to have a planet that's worth living on? About 10 years ago, I started asking my farmers who come and visit me from Illinois a couple questions. These are good people. They never vote for me, I know that, but I still like meeting with them. They're good people. They bring their wives, they dress up in their suits, they take it seriously. They're coming to Washington. This is before COVID-19, of course. And they would sit upstairs in my conference room, and there'd be about 20 or 30 of them from organizations like the Farm Bureau or the corn growers or the soybean growers. And I would say to them, this 10 years ago, how many of you believe that what we are doing on Earth is changing the environment of the Earth we live on? I mean, our human activity is having something to do with it. And I would ask for a show of hands, and the response was, not one hand would go up. And I finally said to them, well, things are changing. What do you think's behind all of it? And one fella, and he did this seriously, and I believe he, speaking from the heart, he says, Senator, some years God sends me a drought, some years God sends me a flood. I got to deal with whatever God sends me. I respect him for that. That's his deep-hearted belief, and it's sincere. But I think there's more to the story. And now when I ask these same farmers the same question, I get a different response. The Illinois corn growers looking around thinking, something's happening here. In this wonderful, bountiful state that I live in, the crops that are grown traditionally are not producing what they did traditionally, unless some hybrid seeds and others and fertilizer are being used. There's new weather conditions, and they're changing each and every year, and it's not getting better. It's getting drier and hotter. And so when Joe Biden starts talking about the next generation of energy in America, I think about my granddaughter, little Jo. I think about Jo, and I'm wondering what kind of world she's going to live in and what I'm going to do about it. One thing that President Biden said was, we're moving towards electric vehicles. You would think that it was a federal mandate that is bringing this on. But if you read the newspapers, you know it isn't. General Motors has accelerated the timetable to go to electric vehicles, Ford as well. They see the writing on the wall. What we currently use for transportation is not going to be what we use in 10 or 15 years. It's going to change. We're going to move to electric vehicles for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is there's fewer emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. The country of Norway just announced last week that over 50% of their vehicles are electric vehicles. If you've been there anywhere in the recent past, you see Teslas in every direction, electric vehicles in every direction. And I spoke to the ambassador from Norway and said, how did that happen? How did you move to the point where more than half the vehicles in Norway are electric vehicles? She said, it's simple, tax breaks. We gave people significant tax breaks to buy electric vehicles. She said, I was one of them, I bought it. And all of a sudden the charging stations started appearing and everybody started to have a new lifestyle with electric vehicles. And they think that protects them in the future, at least holds the possibility of reducing the pollution that they're dealing with. I think they're right. So does Joe Biden. But when we get into an infrastructure debate with Republicans, the first thing they say is, take electric vehicles off the table. We don't want to talk about it. No subsidies, no encouragement for those. Traditionally, we've been encouraging oil companies with all sorts of tax breaks throughout their history to continue to explore and grow in size and make a lot of money. But the notion of encouraging electric vehicles is somehow heretical to our friends on the Republican side. I think it's very short-sighted. I think we should look at the obvious. I tell this story, and it's worth repeating. 6 years ago, we had an auto plant in Normal, Illinois. Yes, that's the name of it, Normal, Illinois. 6 years ago, Mitsubishi closed their auto plant. There were about 1,200 people working there at the time. And there was that big sprawling complex just off of Interstate 55, and every time you took that interstate and looked out there, you thought, that's gonna be there forever. That building is just gonna deteriorate and be there forever. Well, guess what? A year after they closed, the mayor of Normal, Illinois, his name is Chris Coos, wonderful mayor, called me and said, Senator, I think I got a buyer for the Mitsubishi plant. I said, what kind of buyer? He says, there's a man who wants to build electric vehicles, and he came down and took a look, and he liked that plant. He said it was way too big for him and his purposes, but he's actually thinking of building electrical vehicles in the old Mitsubishi plant. Darned if it didn't happen. The company's called Rivian, R-I-V-I-A-N. They bought that plant, and they started building electric vehicles just this month, officially in production. How many workers will they have? Up to 4,000, maybe even 5,000. Will they be able to use the whole plant? They are now building in addition to the plant. Is it a viable company? Is it going to last? Well, obviously Amazon thinks so because they've invested $1 billion in Rivian. And the companies are coming from all around thinking, this is the future. So I say to the senator from Kentucky, yes, there will be transitions in jobs, but there are job opportunities at Rivian in places just like that. Lion Electric is another company, came in from Canada. They build electric buses. One of the things we're envisioning is moving toward electric school buses across America. That's a big move. This is a company that builds them. We need more just like it, and there are going to be good paying jobs associated with it. EV Box is a company out of the Netherlands, located in my state again. They build the charging stations. So to close your eyes to the opportunities here is very short-sighted. Things are changing and changing for the better. And because there is change, it doesn't mean it's bad for everybody. There are transitions that we ought to help, educating people, preparing them for the new jobs. But if you look around at this world and what's happening with the weather patterns and the environment, how short-sighted it would be for us to say to our kids and grandkids, well, we had a chance back in 2021 to do something about it, but we decided it just might make people uneasy to think about that much change. Well, I feel uneasy about the change that's coming if we do nothing. It's going to be a dramatic change for the worse for our kids. And another topic, this notion that Joe Biden is being pushed around by Vladimir Putin, the senator who made that statement on the floor, or one just like it, has he ignored what happened over the last 4 years? Every time the President of the United States, Donald Trump, would meet with Vladimir Putin, they would ask the translators to leave the room, the people from the intelligence agencies to leave the room, and they just play patty cake. I mean, we know what was going on there. There was some sort of political bromance between the president and Vladimir Putin. I don't believe that's ever going to happen with Joe Biden. He's a realist. He made it clear he went in that meeting with Putin to lay down the law in terms of infiltrating our elections in the future and the activities that we've seen in the hacking and cyber crimes. That's the kind of leadership we need in dealing with Vladimir Putin. Madam President, I ask that the statement I'm about to make be placed in a separate part of the record.
Without objection.
Today I want to speak about two really highly qualified judicial nominees the Senate Judiciary Committee came up with through the White House. The first is Candace Jackson Akumi, who's been nominated to the Illinois seat on the 7th Circuit. With her qualifications, temperament, and range of experience, she's outstanding. She's the daughter of 2 judges. Her father, Raymond Jackson, is a federal district court judge, and her mother, Gwendolyn Jones Jackson, is a retired state court judge. She went to Princeton and then Yale Law School, not bad. She clerked for Judge David Corr in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District and for Roger Gregory on the 4th Circuit. After her clerkship, she worked in private practice. And then she made an interesting career decision, and not many people make it. She decided to stop practicing in the private practice of law and become a staff attorney at the Federal Defender Program for the Northern District of Illinois, representing people who couldn't afford counsel. Ms. Jackson Akumi spent 10 years as a federal public defender. Excuse me, she defended hundreds of indigent clients at every stage of the legal process. She is a real lawyer. She knows that courtroom inside and out, and she knows the legal process as well. Ms. Jackson Akumi's experience and perspective on the criminal justice system will be an asset in the Seventh Circuit. She'll be the second, if she's proved, she'll be the second woman of color to be in that circuit. It's about time. Her skills and legal expertise will be invaluable. She received a well-qualified rating by the ABA. She has a great temperament. One of our senators on a Judiciary Committee tried to trap her with a question, seeing just whether she knew enough about the law. When it was all over, I think he was satisfied that she did. She spoke to the fact that her mother taught her how important it is for judges to listen and for litigants to be brief. This is a fundamental principle in our system of justice. She is going to devote her life to defending the rule of law in the future as she has in the past. I really think she's going to be extraordinary. The second nominee the Senate will vote on this week has my strong support as well. Judge Deborah Boardman, nominated to the U.S. District for the District of Maryland, serves as a U.S. Magistrate Judge in the Maryland District Court. Like Jackson Akume, she has received a well-qualified rating from the ABA. She too will bring diversity to the courts. She spent 11 years as a federal public defender herself. She's bringing a perspective which is often not found in these court cases with sitting judges. I have nothing against former prosecutors. I've named a lot of them to the bench, but we ought to have diversity in background, experience, and the like. She has experience in private practice. She's a dedicated public servant, and I hope my colleagues will support her. And Madam President, I ask that one other statement be placed as a separate part of the record.
Without objection.
I watched television Sunday night with my wife. There was a movie called Selma, and Oprah Winfrey had something to do with it because she was in it. And it was, as you might expect, a quality production. And it told the story of what happened in 1965 in Selma, Alabama. It showed the horrific images of Americans being beaten and brutalized in Selma for daring to protest peacefully. For what? For the right to vote. Fewer people know about Turnaround Tuesday. That was the day 2 days after Bloody Sunday, when many of the same people who'd been beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday went back to that bridge to make it plain that they were going to come back again and again until every right of every citizen to vote was secure. That was Turnaround Tuesday. I had a lucky experience. John Lewis, the late John Lewis, who marched across that Edmund Pettus Bridge and almost gave his life in the process, took me one foggy Sunday morning for a walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he told me what he remembered from that day. I've seen pictures over and over again. There he is in his white raincoat with a backpack, marching at the front of the line, and how he was bashed in the head by either a trooper or someone who came along trying to stop him from the march. He almost died as a result of it. It was something I'll never forget. I feel blessed that I had that experience. And then there was the vote on the floor yesterday. What a disappointment. Today, I want to say is welcome back Wednesday. Welcome back to a fight to preserve voting rights that has never ended. It didn't start on that bridge in Selma, and it won't end in this chamber in Washington. This battle is going to continue because there are those people who know that if you want to control America politically, you've got to control those who vote. We saw it after the Civil War when we ended slavery, and African Americans initially had an opportunity to lead, to vote and lead in southern states. And then I'm sad to report my political party, the Democratic Party at that time, was part of initiating the Jim Crow laws, which made it difficult, if not impossible, to vote. And the battle was on. And it being waged to this day about whether or not African Americans will have a right to vote. Make no mistake, when Republicans come to the floor and go through these long, elaborate explanations of why a coordinated effort by Republican legislatures in 20 different states is just good government, I think they know better. It is not good government, and it's not good for the people of those states, particularly if you're a minority. Well, this fight to prevent billionaires from buying elections, to root out corruption in government, didn't end with that filibuster yesterday. Republicans succeeded in delaying this debate for a time, but they're not going to derail it. This is too important. Our democracy is on the line. 5 months ago, and I'm sure you'll never forget it as I won't, a murderous mob, 5 people died, a murderous mob attacked this Capitol and tried to overturn a presidential election. Who sent them? Well, it's clear to me who sent them. A vain, self-pitying former president who couldn't accept defeat or the will of the American people. So Donald Trump created a big lie that the election was stolen. He used that lie to incite that mob to attack this Capitol. He continues to peddle the big lie from his exile at some country club. Now the party that coddled that failed president when he was in power is weaponizing the big lie and using it to justify a relentless attack on voting rights across America. 3 weeks ago, Senate Republicans used the filibuster to kill a bill creating an independent bipartisan commission to investigate who was behind this January 6th insurrection. They killed it with the filibuster, just as they tried to kill the voting rights bill yesterday. That filibuster being used for that purpose is an echo, sadly, of how it's been used in the area of civil rights for as long as it's been in the Senate. This big lie is metastasizing, and instead of stopping it, our Republican colleagues are using all their leverage in the Senate to prevent us from confronting it and halting the damage. The cloture vote yesterday was day one in the fight to preserve voting rights and democracy. It wasn't the end of the story. Welcome to day two. We mean to keep marching until we cross that bridge and stop this assault on our democracy and put an end to the big lie once and for all. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of quorum.
Madam President.
Will the senator suspend?
Suspend.
Under the previous order, the leadership time is reserved. Morning business is closed.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask
Under the previous order, the Senate will proceed to executive session to resume consideration of the following nomination, which the clerk will report.
Nomination, the Judiciary, Deborah L. Boardman of Maryland to be United States District Judge for the District of Maryland.